We are here with spoilers, so prepare to be spoiled if you have not seen the finale of season 2 of The Mandalorian. We are here. I am beyond excited to talk about what we got, and Zach is demonstrating our inner Luke right now. But seriously, everyone, I am Rachel. We're going to be breaking down this episode. With me today, we've got Zach, that Zach Wilson.
Oh,
and
wait, I'm sorry. I should be doing like.
And we've got Christian Blatt, who you may know if you're on this channel.
You may know. You may see my name plastered all over the channel. Yes, and I am excited to be here because I too am a Jedi like my father before me.
We should have known when Boba Fett said, like my father before me, we should have known that they were giving everything away right then and there. I'm just going to spoil it because by now people have been warned. Luke Skywalker, period. Thoughts?
Oh, we're going right to that?
I figure let's start with the big, craziest thing that we saw.
It's the thing everybody's wanted to talk about, but have, I guess, avoided talking about. But I've told both of you separately that I signed out of Twitter on my phone last night so that I couldn't possibly have it spoiled. By the way, it's a lot harder to sign out of Twitter than it used to be. They did not make it easy. But anyway, I did it. And boy, was I glad. You know, I thought that there were spoilers earlier in the season, but yeah, it was great. It was exciting, and I know there are some people who feel otherwise, but
Those other people are wrong.
Well, Mark Hamill himself gave a spoiler.
Oh, did he?
Without even doing it on purpose. He literally just said, something along the lines of, so how's everyone's night? But like,
he just said anything good on TV. That's not a spoiler. Come on.
Not a spoiler. Yeah.
I mean, it's not, but like, I know, Zach, I know you were watching it at midnight because I saw your tweet as I was tweeting. Here's the thing to I couldn't stop myself from tweeting, but you can say I was excited about blank and be okay and not be pissing anyone off.
I think we've talked about it before. I have mixed feelings on the whole Twitter spoiler thing. I don't know that we need to be as sensitive to it. Like, just don't go on Twitter. Like, there's some things like their Deadline put out an article with the Book of Boba Fett like in the headline. I'm like, that's a spoiler. Like, don't do that.
Den of Geek posted a picture with Luke, like the actual CGI, and they took it down, and the editor actually has an apology on the article now.
Yeah, that's stupid. But like, I don't know. If you're worried, just don't go on Twitter. Like, it's not. You can wait a day.
That's what I did. I couldn't go on Twitter. And by the way, the reason I signed out is because first thing in the morning, I did what I always did. And I clicked on the Twitter button and I'm like, oh yeah, I signed out because if I hadn't signed out, I probably would have seen something.
No, it's a reflex. I get that. But anyway, it was cool. It was just so cool. Like I'm curious when you guys knew, because I'll share my journey. Like, I saw the X-Wing come in, and because like it's obvious a Jedi is coming. Like, they're locked down, they're totally screwed. A Jedi is coming. It's just, who's it going to be? A single X-Wing pulls him. Like, I think I yelled at my TV. No, they're not going to do. No.
That's when I knew when the X-Wing showed up. I was like, yep, that's the one. But
I thought it, but I refused to believe it until I saw the glove.
I saw it. I saw the X-Wing. I was like, it's got to be Luke. But I was like, okay, but maybe they're trying to mess with us. But I was pretty sure it was Luke. And then as we're watching this form, this cloaked Jedi, before we saw the green lightsaber, as we're watching him walk, I was like, no, this is Luke. Look at the way he's walking. Look at I knew then. Then we saw the saber and it was green. But I will say this, when I said this to Christian when we were talking over text, the thing that I've been internally screaming about all day is the fact that this is like poetry in motion to me, because the way that we saw Luke come in and destroy those dark troopers, it felt like we were watching a benevolent Anakin. Like it felt like literally the opposite of what we got with Revenge of the Sith, where Anakin's going and destroying, and like before he actually fully, I mean, he's already become Darth Vader, but he's not, he hasn't been destroyed on Mustafar yet. And so to me, it felt like we were literally watching Anakin, who's just become Darth Vader, except this was his son Luke, and we're on his side, and he's saving the good guys.
It reminded me even more of Rogue One.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. Yeah, it felt a lot like that. Yeah,
especially the part where Luke literally uses the Force to crush the head of one of the dark troopers. I was like, "Yep, this is Anakin." I was like, "You can tell they're related."
But this is also Jedi Master, Luke Skywalker, which we never got. This is we've never seen this Luke before. This is full powered Luke. Like we sort of got it in Return of the Jedi, but not really.
We
partially because of the limitations of the time, but partially just like he wasn't fully formed. This is fully formed.
And it's perfect because it's been just enough time. Because my problem between Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi has always been that we don't know exactly how much time has elapsed. And so to me, we know for a fact it's been years, 5 years, right? Since, so we know for a fact he's had 5 years. He's probably been meditating every day. He's probably been training. We are seeing him at probably the height of his power. And my thing is that in canon, we have not gotten this. They did play around with it in the extended universe, or what's now considered the extended universe in books. But in canon and on screen, we've never gotten this. And so I really, if nothing else, I appreciated that we got to see full power Luke at the height of what is going to be his power. Because, and also my problem with Last Jedi, I really do enjoy Last Jedi as a movie. I will never I love Rian Johnson as a director. I overall love the movie, but my problem with it was always that we didn't know how Luke got from the Luke that we knew to the grumpy Luke. And so I want to see that. And so what I'm really hoping is that they do more with this. I hope that the book of Boba is not season 3 of Mandalorian. That was one of my questions I was going to ask you guys. There's been a huge debate whether it's its own thing, or
I think
they wouldn't have called it. It is I see where the confusion is. Because it's coming out at the same time,
same month, because they didn't say. Here's my thing: if it was really the same project, if it was really going to be season 3 of Mandalorian, why didn't they just say Christmas 2021, which is when Mandalorian 3 is coming?
It's its own show. Media, all the media places are reporting it as its own show.
Some of them are.
They would have done the Marvel thing. And Boba Fett will return. They wouldn't have given it a unique title.
My thing is, every article I've been reading, from all the major outlets, they're saying there's a lot of confusion. They're not sure. Christian, do you think it's its own show, or do you think it's?
I think it's its own show. I only, you had mentioned that you thought that it was going to be season 3 of Mandalorian. There's not something I thought of. I was excited that they rolled out. Sorry, I was excited they rolled out 10 shows last week, and this wasn't one of them. And the amount of restraint it took to not mention it. But I think the fact that it wasn't one of those shows, that does lend itself to the idea that maybe it is that. But so I know I talked over you. I'm sorry. What were you saying?
No. I don't necessarily think that it's its own show.
Oh, yeah.
I don't think that it's necessarily season 3. I'm just saying there's a lot of debate right now, and people are making really good on both sides.
And I hadn't considered it. I just wanted to backtrack for a second because I essentially agree with Zach. As soon as we saw the X-Wing, I'm like, okay, there's only one guy that flies in the X-Wing. And before we saw the green lightsaber, we saw very distinctly the belt that he's wearing in Return of the Jedi.
Yep.
And I'm like, yeah, there's a slight chance they're messing with us. I did think that was possible. And, oh, Ezra dresses like Luke now. And by the way, I know everybody loves the animated series. I'd been very disappointed if it was Ezra and not Luke.
If they all flagged us with Luke and it wasn't,
that's what I mean.
Yeah, and that's why, like, as soon as I saw it, for me, it was the glove and then the belt. Like, because when you saw a gloved hand, I was like, oh, like they're doing. I was like, they're really doing this. I can't believe they're really doing this.
Is that Mark Hamill is still the voice. They actually, so the interesting thing is that Max Lloyd Jones is the actual body double. He's credited as double for Jedi, but it's Mark Hamill's like alterated voice. I love that we still got that.
How did it sound and look for you guys? Like, for me, the sound was close, but very not quite right. And the de-aging that Star Wars has done, it's uncanny valley. I'm fine with it for these purposes. Like, if it's going to be for a couple minutes on screen, that's fine, as long as that's it. Like, no more than what we got.
I was more disturbed by Grand Moff Tarkin in Rogue One because Peter Cushing was dead for so long. Because the actor has been dead for so many years. That's why I was disturbed by it. This was a little weird, and I watched it in the way of like, Christ, how much did this cost? Like it took me out of it a little bit because I'm like, oh, it looks pretty good. Definitely sounds pretty good, but this isn't cheap to do that, So it took me out in that way, I would say.
It did not take me out. Was it a little bit off in the sense that it's not going to replace the real Mark Hamill at that age? Yes, like I did know, like you instantly know it's CGI, but also the fact that it's that close to looking like the real person, I thought they did an incredible job. It doesn't bother me when they do that because to me, outside of getting someone like Sebastian Stan, who, so many fans want him to play young Luke, outside of getting someone like him who does resemble him, I'd rather them just CGI Luke instead of getting an actor that looks nothing like him. That would have thrown me out more. Like, I'm sorry, I love what they did with Solo, but I couldn't get past. Yes, I couldn't get past how different the actor looked who was playing Han than Harrison Ford. That took me out.
That doesn't bother me. Like I can. It's all about finding the balance for me. Like, if you're gonna do a single scene, don't bother recasting. I'll deal with the CGI to have the fun.
Yeah. There.
However, if you're gonna do a whole movie, I think recast. Like, it doesn't bother me that much, and I stand by that. I thought Alden Ehrenreich did a great job, like being that character, and like with an almost impossible task. I thought he did a really good job. But we don't need to talk about Solo today. All day about Luke Skywalker showing up. Yeah. So I have questions, you guys.
I mean,
it raises so many questions.
I just wanted to. Sorry, let me just reference one thing because the reveal, Luke being badass, all that is so cool. But probably my favorite part of the sequence is the horror on Moff Gideon's face because I think he knows who it is, and he's like, "Oh no, this is the one way that I'm fucked. I had this all figured out. Oh, but the Super Jedi just showed up. God damn it!" Like.
And one guy, and we saw the whole thing is that they really built up how powerless a regular human is. Even a human in, the right Beskar armor is pretty much effed against this guy, against any of these, against one Dark Trooper. I was genuinely scared of them, scarier than I've ever been of any villain on Star Wars, to be quite honest, because it's these massive robots. It's a whole like platoon of robots, and they really worked up that fear factor with the way that their eyes were red and like squinted. But my point is that I love that they set that up. That Peyton Reed did such a great job of actually setting that up so that you knew, like you were genuinely afraid of these things, and you knew that if they were coming back in, you knew that them, like outside of maybe Baby Yoda and obviously Gideon, who actually like addressed this elephant in the room, outside of the two of them, they were going to die. Like there was no way they were going to survive this. Unless they ran. And I just figured that's before we had the X-Wing showing up. I kind of thought that's the direction they were going, that they would have to flee, and that Grogu would end up with Moff, and that would be the end. And then we'd go to season 3 and Din back with a vengeance. That's where I thought they were going. But then we had, the Deus Maxima show up, i.e. Luke, who's not a machine.
Well, I will say, I don't think it's a Deus Ex Machina. I don't think it was it was, I thought it was surprising enough, but also the absolute logical thing that had to happen if you know Star Wars. Like if you know Star Wars, if you love Star Wars, Luke Skywalker, like calling out to a Jedi in this time period, if anybody else had shown up, yeah, you might have been surprised, but it would have broken the world. This was the right. It was you may not have been surprised by it, but it was the right story decision for the moment, because there are other Jedi. That's the whole point of this era, is that there are a few like kind of Jedis running around with Ahsoka,
including
Ezra.
Luke's sister, who's kind of a Jedi.
But not really.
But not really.
Hasn't been trained at this point. Like it's maybe a Padawan at best.
At best.
And
Agreed in her storyline, which like I don't need. You know what? I'm not going to go off on my Rise of Skywalker rant.
Hey, I didn't say a word about Last Jedi when it came up. So let's stay focused.
But it was the right decision, and I'm so glad that they pulled that insane thing. However,
go ahead.
I was going to change the topic. So if you have
so I'll say, and I can actually be done with this part of the topic. The moment when they finally showed us his face, and yes, Rachel, we got the music. I felt the way that I didn't at the end of Force Awakens when we see Luke for the first time, and it is supposed to be this big reveal. It didn't resonate with me like this. That was like, oh, okay, cool. They found Luke. Can't wait to see what happens next. But this was like they built it in such a way, and it's just like, are you a Jedi? He's like, yeah,
so
I'm the Jedi, bro.
Here's my only problem is that, and I understand with the circumstances, maybe Luke either somehow didn't remember Boba, or, he never really saw his face, even though he was wearing the armor. But even if Luke didn't remember him or didn't recognize him with the mask off, Boba should have recognized Luke.
Well, Boba had left at that point. He left on the Slave One, like he created the diversion, and he immediately left. He flew. He like went to hyperspace or whatever. So like when they're landing,
about. You're right. Yeah. Never mind. I take it back.
But if he had been on the bridge, that's an interaction that I think we would have enjoyed.
That's a whole other story.
I take it back. I realize now that he did leave. Yeah. But I digress. My question then is, no wonder they had him leave. So because obviously Bo-Katan wouldn't know him. Probably not. Actually, no. I take that back too, because she was involved with the rebellion to some point.
Was it post Rebels that she was involved?
Well, from Rebels we knew that she was, at least a little tiny bit involved.
Yeah, but you know, at the time that Rebels ends, Luke is still studying for his entrance exam to the Imperial Academy. You know, so he's not somebody.
No, by the time that it ends, it's actually after.
Oh yeah.
Well,
I'm talking about the time
other than
that
the
most of
epilogue.
Rebels is. Yeah, you're right. You're absolutely right.
But the question is, we don't know enough about Well, I'm just going to assume Bo-Katan, if she knew Luke, she only knew of him, if that. It's very possible.
And he also never said his name.
Yeah, this is a good theory. Charlie says Bo may have recognized Luke's last name, but he didn't say it. So, you know, he just said, I'm a Jedi. He didn't say, I'm Luke Skywalker. And then like, oh,
but
that's not a common name.
Let's be fair. That's the one flaw. Luke Skywalker walks in a room. I'm Luke Skywalker, Jedi Knight. We know that's how.
But here's the thing is that, you know, I'm wondering if, you know, he didn't say his name. Maybe Bo-Katan just has never met him, so wouldn't recognize him. We don't know. I don't know how involved she was with the rebellion at a certain point.
All of that, the question that this raised for me. So Luke Skywalker takes Grogu with him. Does this mean that Kylo Ren murders Grogu? I'm so
about that.
So here's the thing. Okay, my thought on that is that we either get you guys have read the Rise of Kylo Ren comic, right?
I have not actually.
That's not one I've read. I've read a lot of the more recent stuff, but I haven't read that one.
My guess is
Keep him safe, Zach.
The Rise of Kylo Ren, the comic started coming out after TROS. So my guess is that by this point, I mean, not that they're going to show us Grogu or anything, because that would have been too much of a spoiler, but they probably would have known already what Grogu's level of involvement was in terms of when he may have perished, if he perishes. My guess is that Grogu doesn't stay with Luke long. I'm thinking that because Din literally says he's going to see him again. So yeah, I'm thinking that we're going to get Grogu and Din back together next season, and that Grogu's not with Luke for that much longer.
Michael B is on that page. I think Mando comes and gets Grogu after he's fully trained.
Well, either that or we're going to do a major time hop, and we're going to see, you know, I don't know, like, we'll do like a 10-year jump into season 3, but I mean, anything's possible. I don't
I brought it up because it's the thing that people have texted me. Multiple people have texted me like, does this mean that this happens?
Well,
I don't think it does.
I don't think so either, but we know that we can at least guess that Ben Solo now knows of Grogu based on the fact that Luke has him. And it's a very plausible guess to say that, you know, Ben probably trained with him, but we'll find out more maybe next season when we find out if Grogu is there long or if he ends up coming back.
Yeah, it's also 15 years, which like is generally how long it would take for, and granted, Grogu already had some training, so I think 15 years would get him to a point where he would probably be self-sufficient in the Force.
You know what would be interesting to me? There's been some fan speculation that the person who took Grogu from the temple for some reason was Anakin. And that's how he ended up escaping, and that maybe Anakin took him for the purposes that like he could sense there was something special about this Force sensitive being, and like that's why he didn't kill him. But it would be interesting to me if that's how they kind of work it into Ahsoka, and then we get both Luke and Force Ghost Anakin in Ahsoka.
No,
that wouldn't make sense. I want to take the comment off the screen, but Daniel Drew agrees that there'd be a time jump between seasons 2 and 3, or seasons 3 and 4. I think he's probably right about all of that. I think there'll definitely be a jump. But sorry, what were you going to say, Zach?
Well, I don't think it'll be a major one for season 3. I think we're shooting over to Mandalore, and we're gonna need to see the drama, the immediate drama of Bo.
We'll talk about that in a second with the dark side.
like Bo and and Din are going to have a thing, and we can't skip over that.
No,
Yeah.
but what we definitely can't skip over is the fact that Luke brought one of the single most important characters in Star Wars with him, whose name we have not mentioned yet. One of the only two characters in all 9 movies, R2-D2. And he didn't need to be there. Logically, there's no reason he should have come aboard. Oh boy, was I glad he was there. And I also liked that they didn't explain what he was saying. And it's like, you could have had a line of like, yeah, this one reminds us of somebody we used to know. It's like, no, we get it. We know what R2's saying. So I was just like, I don't need him here. But boy, this made me happy that I got to see R2-D2.
There's a minute of just these two cute, iconic creatures making noises at each other with no words, and I could have watched it for another 30 minutes.
Yep.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I don't even care if it made no sense. Like, to me,
it didn't make no sense. He was in the X-Wing.
Well, I wasn't saying it definitely didn't make sense. Just that even if there was no real specific plot point for it, I don't care. Like, I think that that's one of the things that makes Star Wars so special is the fact that R2-D2 has lived through all of this, and he's like the resident historian, even though he never told Luke. But what I wanted to bring up too, which is very important, speaking of Bo and Din and the Darksaber. What I wanted to bring up is this idea that now Din will have to, now Bo will have to fight Din for the sword. There's been some debate about that though, based on Rebels. Zach, would you care to comment on that?
Well, because she takes it from Sabine. I think it's a
take it. Sorry, go ahead.
Well, it's sorry. It's like there's a lot of Star Wars going on in my head. Like, because Sabine tries to hand it to her, and she takes it at first, but then there is a fight over it.
So the whole argument is that it's not really like the way that they're interpreting it is that since Sabine didn't have to fight for it on Dathomir, that she essentially kind of won it. That's why there didn't have to be a fight to the death for Bo-Katan to be able to take the Darksaber. That's why Sabine could kind of just give it to her.
And
versus this where Din had to technically fight Moff Gideon, and now the fight has to go between for whoever's going to take it next. But the problem with this is that Tar Vizsla, who was the first Mandalore, he was brought up in Rebels, and with him, if you look at his history, there is not a history of fighting to the death for the sword. It's passed down.
Think it was ever it wasn't a fight to the death per se, but you had to take it. You had to take it by force. Is the idea? Like in the current thing, and I think part of it is that like maybe Bo didn't need to take it by force the first time, but she lost it. It was taken from her, and so it's one thing to inherit it, but it's another thing to lose it, and for her to have lost it and not retake it by fighting, regardless of whether she kills anybody. The fact that she doesn't actively take it from an unwilling opponent.
Well,
it loses her the warrior status,
and she doesn't.
She lost it.
Yeah, I just think that there's some confusion because Sabine didn't have to fight her. Sabine just ended up giving it to her, and then what they're saying is that the reason for that is when Sabine got it, she didn't have to fight anyone for it. She just ended up getting it on Dathomir. So
but then Sabine but then it got taken, and Sabine did end up fighting over it. Because it was taken by, I forget the character's name, but there was a fight where she lost it for a moment and then had to battle her
brother. I think, I'm trying to remember who the character was, but it was with her brother.
So anyway, I think it's more about the fact.
Charlie's saying, Bo and Din could WWE the fight. Yeah, I would pay-per-view that.
Yeah, I think it's more about the fact that she had actively lost it than it is about the way that she's getting it now.
I mean, that's kind of when they presented that at the end of the episode before we got Luke, I was literally thinking that was going to be the kicker of this episode, was that they were going to, like, this is before the dark troops came back. I was thinking that was going to be the thing that messed everything up, that Din and Bo were going to get so caught up in this fight that Moff Gideon was going to be able to take Grogu and somehow make his exit. But of course, that's not what happened. But yeah, they can't just, either way, they can't just bring this element up of Bo wanting this sword and needing to fight Din for it. They can't just drop it. So that's probably, I would gather, that's going to be the next focus when we start back up with season 3.
We're going to get, it sounds like we are going to get one of the most classic Star Wars story points, which is the hero's journey and refusal of the call, is literally what Din just did. Like, we just watched Din do refusal of the call.
Yeah. We literally, A New Hope.
He's like, I don't want this. No, take it. Just take it. I'm not going to tell anybody.
And who, honestly, it's all been there in front of us the whole time. The Mandalorian. Din Djarin is the Mandalorian. He will return to Mandalore as the Mandalorian, who, like, he was raised in this his whole life. He follows an ancient way, but is learning to bend it. So I think, like, if anyone is going to reunite Mandalore, it's not, but like what we just saw, it's not going to be Bo-Katan. It's going to be the reluctant Din.
And wherever Mandalore now is, now that the planet's been destroyed, it will be interesting how, like, if that becomes the next arc, that Din, who does not want to rule Mandalore, that he's basically going around the galaxy, presumably with Bo, trying to get all of the other tribes together. My guess, too, is that I don't think we're going to see Din put the helmet back on. I think he's done with it. What do you think, Christian?
Well, he may have given up on the idea of leaving it on all the time, but I think for practical reasons, like, if he's fighting, I think he would still wear it. But
I think so too.
And I'm just sort of nitpicking in my answer because sometimes you anticipate what people might, respond to in the chat or otherwise. But yeah, I think that we've seen him get comfortable with taking it off. He's met these other Mandalorians, Bo-Katan very rarely wears the helmet. So yeah, I think that, the fact that, that Grogu just wanted to see him, and the fact that he hadn't, by the way, was very telling about how dedicated he was to it. I think we sort of have said this lightheartedly, but I think he's reformed Mandalorian as opposed to Orthodox Mandalorian now. I think
he's conservative.
He's conservative. Okay, yeah, right. I mean, look, he's not going to have a bacon cheeseburger, but.
Well, like, it'll be interesting because, look, I kind of hope that he goes back for the armorer. I'd love to see that character again and to see because she gave him this task, this journey, and that journey made him kind of break with the way. So, and the way says once you've taken off the helmet or had it taken off, you cannot put it back on. He's now done it twice.
Mm-hmm.
Not counting with IG-11, but it's going to be interesting to see what he does with that. I think as we move forward, you're going to see him. I think that's going to be his task, is to find the Mandalorians again. Like, his tribe got wiped out except for the armorer.
Well, I think it's also
that's a really interesting season 3, and it's a different season 3. It's the same show but different. So I'm all about it.
That's why I could potentially, and I say potentially very strongly, I could potentially believe that this chapter, that this part of the book of Din, is now over with less focus on him. I don't think that they're going to do that because Disney understands what made this series as a little green guy named Grogu. Like they're not, I don't think they're going to shy away from Grogu and Din. And I don't think that they're going to completely do that. At least I'll be very disappointed if season 3 has nothing to do with them. I would like to see Grogu come back immediately because I feel like he's a main character. But what I was going to say, though, about Din is that either way, I loved that we did kind of get this closing moment. Din did exactly what he said he would do, and that was bring Grogu to a Jedi. So he completed his task. We've seen the closure of that arc with a lot of questions open, but also we've seen a lot of growth with Din. And I think that that's kind of, like cemented in the fact that he's now taking the helmet off. And we can kind of guess that, obviously he will wear it during, he'll wear it for practical purposes, of course, just like Bo-Katan or any of the other Mandalorians. But I feel like this is now a turning point for him in that he is starting to understand that there's a difference between the tribe that he comes from and being a Mandalorian in general.
Well, I think it's more that he's learning there's a difference between being a warrior and being a good, like being a person.
He
two are not exclusive.
And I don't think he even wants to be a warrior anymore. I think that I got the sense that he really just wants to settle down and take care of Grogu, be his father. Especially he's not he went to a point where someone literally wanted to duel him and over the dark saber, and he's like, just take it. So
he's never cared about, the character has never cared about like victory or triumph. Like he's never sought out battle. It's just like, but it's what he's good at, and it's his job. It's how Mandalorians treat this thing. It's not, they're not seeking out violence when it's unnecessary. They just they don't shy from it.
Yeah, and I understand that, but I think in the past, Din might have been more likely to take that duel. So I think that this in itself shows that he's changing. And also just
he doesn't go out of his way to fight for things that aren't important to him. Like he would fight, he would go across half the galaxy to help Grogu, but the Darksaber doesn't mean anything to him. He doesn't care about like a powerful weapon.
I understand, but I still think that in the past he might have taken that fight. So
just a big picture comment from the chat from Charlie Barajas. I thought that season 2 was the Empire Strikes Back of the show, but now I'm thinking seasons 1 and 2 have to be viewed as a single entity, and now we're entering the Empire portion of the story. I think that we'll see Grogu in season 3. I was expecting kind of the journey of Din and Grogu to continue in season 3. I thought he was going to narrowly get rescued. I didn't think he was going to head off with Luke Skywalker or anybody else at the end. But the fact that season 3 won't necessarily be about protecting the child, I think is welcome because it can be about anything now. And I don't want to not see him, but I love the idea that the show can be about something different now. And I can't even imagine what that might be.
I actually don't think we're going to see Grogu until maybe season finale of next season.
I hope not. Yeah, I mean, I think that's a valid point, but I just really hope we do see him early, within the first couple of episodes early. But also, what I was going to say is that I feel like this was the right time to close that part of the story. If a Jedi had not shown up and we were still dealing with that in season 3, it might have felt like it was going on a little bit too long. Like, okay, are we seeing, is this still the goal or what? Like with Din to bring Grogu to a Jedi, because what do we do now? So I feel like this was a nice time for them to kind of close that part up and welcome in whatever they can do next, because, like you guys have said, there's so much they can utilize in this world, so much that's happening. So I'd like to see what that next chapter is.
Yeah. And that's the thing. It's like, I think like, look, I love Grogu, obviously. We all do, but like diminishing returns at a certain point, like if the character doesn't grow. Like you can't have a baby on the show for that long because you're
Well,
all the gags are gonna be repetitive. The storylines are gonna be the same. He doesn't grow fast enough because it's a 900-year-old lifespan for him to like actually age up. So I think that getting him off the show will be better for the show.
But also, we know that the Force has a way of aging people. So I'm wondering if that even if he's with Luke for like, a year or like, maybe like a year even, that he would come back and that it would feel like he's a lot older. And maybe he's even able to talk just based on that year of training. But here's my thing. I don't necessarily need, it would be nice to see Grogu back with Din, but I don't want it to be premature for the character. What I hope is that even if Din and Grogu can't be together for a while, that we get to see Grogu still, and we get to see, even if it's like little clips of his training. I feel like it would be, at least that would give us something to hold out hope for.
You referenced him. Sorry, you referenced him talking. I was wondering if either of you were expecting or at least hoping he'd say one thing on the way out. I thought it was going to be like Silent Bob in the Kevin Smith movies. He usually gets one line at the end. So I thought that we would have gotten some wisdom from Grogu, who maybe, being, reunited with a Jedi, maybe had something to say. Somebody in the chat, I don't remember who it was, said that they would have liked to hear him say like Papa or Dada or something when he saw. I would have liked to have heard him say something, maybe one word, but I thought that we were going to get that, but but we didn't.
I think it'd feel weird. I don't know. It's a funny idea to me, but it doesn't feel like a good idea.
I was hoping for it, but I also wanted it to be executed the right way. So if it had come off, I think that, Zach, you have a really good point, because if they had done it the wrong way, it wouldn't have been worth it. But if they had somehow found a way, which I'm just guessing that maybe it felt like a moment where he might have said a word. So I'm guessing that they probably toyed with that idea in the writer's room. If I had to just take a guess at it.
Michael B has the perfect answer for who the voice of Grogu should be. Eddie Murphy, also known as Donkey in the Shrek movies. It's not the obvious choice, but it's the right choice.
It would have been a chance for Ming-Na Wen to be reunited with her co-star. Full circle, Mushu, yeah. I don't know. That is the question, because then if he did have a voice, he's not going to sound like Yoda. Like, how does a little 50-year-old species sound at 50? Because I also get the sense that they've hinted that Grogu actually should have been older, like mentally older than what he is, but based on what happened to him, based on the fact that he's been hidden away for so many years, that's kind of what stunted some of his growth. So
it also like feels very strange that a species would be nonverbal for 50 years. I think he, once he's been training for a while, like he'll be talking backwards and dropping truth bombs on us like everybody expected.
And obviously Vin Diesel's going to be his voice. He's going
to be like, I
am Grogu.
He's going to be like, I don't know, have all these like muscles and be like super tall and not like Yoda, like, and have this super deep voice. No, I think that with him talking, what's an interesting point is that we don't know if Yoda spoke the way that he did based on being around other, similar creatures, or if Yoda just naturally spoke that way. I'm assuming that with the books coming out that are in the High Republic era, that we're going to get some more information about that, especially with the rumors that we're getting a younger Yoda. So we might find out more, and it will probably relate back to what we're getting with Grogu.
We're definitely getting younger Yoda. They've already released the art for it.
Yeah.
The question is, will we get a young Yaddle?
Yeah, well, hopefully. Yeah.
Because that will be how we find out is how does Yaddle talk?
Yeah, but
That's
no,
a
they
great point.
have released the arcs of the 3 books were available on NetGalley, but also they've released little clippets too that kind of show you some of what you'll be able to expect. But yeah, January they're releasing the first High Republic book. But I'm just bringing that up because what I'm hoping they do to kind of keep this in sync is that we actually do learn more about Yoda's species, so that we in turn learn more about Grogu and what he might be experiencing, and also the age thing too, because we don't know how that species ages.
Yeah.
So
I do want him to talk backwards. I will be unsettled if he speaks forward. And I get that it's a dialect thing and maybe it was raised, but I still want that baby Grogu, who has been around Yoda. We have to imagine, we have to assume that Yoda trained Grogu at some point.
Yeah, he's probably been around Anakin, Obi-Wan, which brings up another question to me. In my mind, I was wondering, even though the Obi-Wan series is set before this, if somehow we'll get a flashback with Obi-Wan and baby Grogu before the Empire took over. Because that would be interesting. I don't know if we will, but
Grogu would have had to have been smuggled out during Revenge of the Sith.
Yeah, but before that, Grogu would have been there, and Obi-Wan would have been there, and
so I just mean that I like Obi-Wan's locations are accounted for. During that time and during Order 66, he was off world.
Well, right, but before Order 66, I'm just wondering if we'll get any flashback at all that shows that maybe even Obi-Wan was around during Grogu's training, just to get more information. I don't know if they're going to do flashbacks, but
this is pretty funny. I'm picturing from Charlie Bras. I'm picturing Grogu's face of terror at learning Luke's last name, because he was really into it. When he sees him on the screen, he's like, "Oh, okay, this is a Jedi. This is cool." And then it's like, "Oh wait, Skywalker? Oh yeah, I'm lucky that guy didn't kill me." But
to be fair, he also sensed him. He senses good in Luke.
Yeah, but I think that I don't want to get too bogged down in minutia, but I mean, between Revenge of the Sith, between episodes 3 and 4, it's less than 30 years because of how old Luke and Leia are in A New Hope. So, I mean, Grogu very well could have been in isolation for a long time before even that. So, I would like an answer to this. Does he know? Did he know Obi-Wan even when he was a Padawan? I mean, who has he interacted with? What other Jedi has he interacted with?
Well, just who got him out, I think is they raised that question for us. And we know, just knowing Jon Favreau, from what he talks about his process, he knows who took him.
Yeah. I mean, that's an interesting. I'm under the impression it's someone that we do know. What do you guys think?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a short list. It's either Obi-Wan, Anakin, or Yoda. I think.
What if it was Jar Jar?
By the way, speaking of Jar Jar, because we talked about maybe the Yodas would talk differently, Craig Robinson, who I believe is in the UK and is very early in the morning there, Craig is pointing out the Gungans all talk the same. That doesn't mean that whatever Yoda species is that they all talk the same, but it's something to consider. They might all sound like Frank Oz. So Miss Piggy might actually be the same species as Yoda because the voices are obviously identical.
And also that brings up a good point because the Gungans were predominantly together. And so, of course, they would speak similarly because they're around.
It's an accent. It's the same as an accent.
Yeah, but
so the Gungans we know, it's like they all have a Brooklyn accent. So there might be Gungans with a Southern accent.
True. My thought with who got Grogu out of the temple, they have been teasing this idea that Mace Windu is alive. And I'm almost wondering if after he fell, it could have been before too, if he got Grogu out before all this was happening. But let's just pretend that he didn't, and he didn't hide them anywhere. Maybe after he fell, his last like major his last major task was going to this like secret chamber where they kept Grogu for some reason, and Mace got him out. But
yeah,
I don't know.
I've seen that theory that there are people that were wondering, like, oh, it could have been Mace Windu who shows up in this episode, but what's the basis for him not being dead? Didn't we all see him die in Revenge of the Sith?
Fell out a window.
We saw him fall out a window, and we know that his hand is off. But here's the thing: we've seen people fall and survive.
True.
Darth Maul. So I mean,
Luke Skywalker fell very far.
I mean, I know
Luke did a little slidey move.
That's
and
true.
Darth Maul stayed alive by utilizing the dark side. Now there are those discussions of did Mace sort of do trials with the dark side, like trying to manipulate it, and he might have.
Yeah. Well,
and that's why his Kyber turned purple, because he's got a little bit of red in him.
Well, Samuel L. Jackson did an interview in 2016 where he basically said, well, anyone could survive. So, and that's one of the reasons why fans are like so excited about this, because Samuel L. Jackson himself, dropped something like that.
Yeah.
And Mike, yeah.
Here's
by the way, his name is actually a spoiler alert. His name is Mace Window.
Oh man.
Sorry, what were you going to say, Zach?
The one person that I will say that would be like a known character that would be like I think reasonable for it to turn out to be. And then we got to talk about Boba. Is Bail Organa.
Oh.
Yeah.
Character's got a known history of taking in strays.
Yeah, I could see that. I mean, he's pretty accounted for too during that time, but you never know. They could write it in.
Well, it doesn't have to be physically, but like him being the one who like takes him out of the temple and passes him off.
Yeah, I could see that. Oh, then maybe he was on Alderaan and then ended up leaving right before.
Yeah. By the way, how about that Imperial pilot at the beginning of the episode bad mouthing Alderaan? I think there's never been a character that I have expected to see get a laser to his head.
Speaking of that pilot, I could not unsee Nathaniel Malik.
Yeah,
I couldn't place him. I had to look it up afterwards. I recognized his voice, and it was just like, who are you?
I couldn't. I was like, oh my God, we're watching Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Wait, no, we're not.
As he went on and was more and more of a dick, that's when I knew he was Malik. I was just like, oh, this guy's so annoying. Oh, I know him. He's
got a very unique voice, I think. And so I could tell from the moment, and this isn't the first time we saw him. This is the second time we've seen him on Mando. And he has that very I don't know what kind of accent it is, if it is an accent, but he sounded kind of the same as when he portrayed Nathaniel. And I was like, wow, okay. Maybe just a natural voice then. So let's, we've talked a lot about Luke and, everything else in this episode. I think it's a fair time for us to move on to the after credit show. Let's talk about Boba Fett and and a certain Bib Fortuna.
Oh, I texted Rachel. How excited I was to see a fat Bib Fortuna sitting on Jabba's throne, because apparently when you have that job, the way to show that you're good at it is to eat a lot. Because remember, the Jabba that we see won in Phantom Menace, and yes, I know it's inserted in the special edition, but it tracks the somewhat larger Jabba that we see, and then just the massive Jabba from Return of the Jedi. I was just like, oh yeah, so he really studied at the master, and Bib Fortuna really let himself go. He really put the bib in Bib Fortuna, and the tuna in Fortuna. Sorry, I cracked myself up.
Terrible.
Yeah, they're awful. These are terrible,
Christian.
I know. This is in the same episode where I make the Mace Window joke. So
No,
anyway,
it wasn't
but
exactly that Fortuna at the end.
yeah, it was very unfortunate for him. It was so great. Zach's like, why did I do this? Why am I still up? But Zach's gone full Lebowski on us. But no, it was so great. Like to just see an exterior of Jabba's palace, you're like, well, what's going on here? You know?
They showed Jabba's palace, and I yelled through this whole episode. Thank God I was watching it alone, and I live alone, and it's just like me gripping my little TV tray thing the whole time with a glass of scotch. And then Jabba's palace shows up. I yell again. It's like, what are we doing here? They show Bib Fortuna. They fucking murder him.
Yeah, and I'm loving that Fennec is such an integral part of this.
And that she's just the two of them are just gonna be a badass team. This was literally Boba Fett said, I ain't playing no fucking games. I'm here for the throne.
I want to see that world where Boba Fett is I want to see this.
Yeah, well, you will in December of 2021.
Yeah, I mean, look,
a separate thing from Mandalorian season 3 because
look, he is he's a bounty hunter and he is true to form. The sort of the aberration in his behavior is helping Mando, but he was bound to that. He was obligated to. So he kind of played good guy for a little while, but that's not who he is. I love that that's not who Fennec is either.
Let's be honest. They were all just mesmerized by Grogu. Grogu causes people to behave against their own interests constantly because you're must protect.
Yeah, that's true. Just I mean, the fact that Kara's recently made a sheriff of the New Republic, and she's like, yeah, I can't really break the rules. It's for the kid. All right, I'm gonna break out Bill Burr. We're gonna do it.
Yeah. No, I think it's the perfect next step for Boba to see him one as the ruler, but also of the exact place where we originally thought he died on Tatooine. So it makes complete sense that he'd go back there. I'm so excited for it. Like you said, Zach, I was screaming typically internally, but there were some external screams this whole episode. But that ending that we got, that was completely unexpected and just, I'm just very excited. And I really
because they'd already broken our brains with and then they were just so we know you're still reeling from everything that just went down because one, it was Luke, and then it was emotion between our two hero characters, and we were like, this is so good. I'm just gonna sit here and breathe. And a lot of people turned it off, and then you're just like, okay, that was good. Wait a minute, what is Jabba's palace doing there?
Well, and also I'm wondering too with Miggs. I don't think we've seen the last of him, and if they wanted to involve him with this storyline.
Wait, Miggs?
He's the one who they broke out of. Well, he was with them.
Bill Burr. Bill Burr.
Yeah, just call him Bill Burr. It's easier.
I call him Bill Burr.
I like this question from Charlie. Are we getting Crime Lord Boba Fett or Lone Sheriff destroying the underground Boba Fett? Crime Lord Boba Fett, definitely.
I kind of vote the latter, but we'll see.
No. The latter will be interesting for sure, but it's not true to form. As Ivan asks, Fett is a villain after all. Yeah. That is 4 minutes into his first appearance in the holiday special, you realize he's a villain. He has always been a villain. This behavior in this season of Mandalorian is the one time where he's kind of a good guy.
Fett is an anti-hero. I give him anti-hero because he's not evil. He's a bounty hunter. He's fighting for himself, and like once we know more of it, the more you learn about his backstory and kind of his tragic upbringing, like he absolutely fits the anti-hero bill.
By the way, because it's my mom and because she's up at 1 a.m. for some reason, she says it was one of the few times in my life I sat through the credits. I was so glad I did. I'm worried now about my mom. I'm worried about my mom, one, for being up at 1 a.m, but like how much has she missed from Marvel movies if she doesn't stay for the credits?
No, I was just gonna say that to me the most interesting villains are the ones that are very layered, that aren't necessarily bad, but they're obviously they're always the hero of their story. But I love villains like Boba, where it's I mean, he's going to do bad things that we don't agree with, but you can also kind of see it from his eyes too, based on what we know about him, especially going back to the prequels and just watching his dad die that way. Like, of course, that kid is going to grow up to have certain things that he's ways that he's doing the world. I mean, they always knew that. We always knew that. That's kind of why I think they showed that scene the way they did, going back to Attack of the Clones.
Yeah, I also thought it's an interesting thing that I kind of hope that his story deals with, where Bo-Katan called him a clone.
Yeah.
And while technically he is like a clone, he's not a clone in the more general way that word is used.
Yeah,
he's to refer to the clone soldiers. And I think that in and of itself will be a very interesting facet of people who do recognize the voice and the look of a clone trooper. But Boba being like, I'm not one of them. Please give me a live action Rex.
And I was just going to say that live action Rex, it would be amazing if live action Rex has to somehow either face off with or maybe the opposite, maybe work with Boba. That would just be amazing. And if they somehow work in the Bad Batch, we're getting the animated series, which looks like it's set, right after Revenge of the Sith. But it would be interesting if any of those people survive to see them in live action later on, in the Mandalorian time period.
Yeah, well, with Fennec, I kind of doubt that they will, with Fennec being part of that show. I feel like the only one who's going to make it out.
Maybe that's an interesting thought. I guess we'll see. But I would love to see Rex. I really just want to see Rex in general, even if he's not with Boba, but it would make more sense from just the fact that they, Bo-Katan called Boba out for being a clone. And I know he is a clone, but he wasn't the same as the rest of them. So it's a little bit different.
Yeah, and I think that the earlier sequence with Boba Fett in the episode interacting with the Mandalorians, I think that just reinforces, how much of a lone wolf he really is. He's, yes, he has the armor. They don't accept him. He doesn't want to be accepted by them. He just kind of wants to do his thing. He has claim to the armor, as was established earlier this season, but he's not trying to be a Mandalorian. There's also a whole conversation going on. Michael B. is one of the people saying that he thinks of Boba Fett as an anti-hero, not a crime lord. I think of him as a flat-out villain, Boba, bounty hunter. What Michael says is...
why do those have to be two different things? How many seasons did Tony Soprano get?
Yeah, no, it's true. I think Boba's going to clean up the planet because if he wanted to be a crime lord, he would have kept the slave girl. I disagree. You don't necessarily want a slave girl. And also, if you want to be a crime boss, you automatically don't want to be, we were on the verge of getting a season 3 of Luke Cage where it looked like he was going to be a crime boss. He wasn't going to be somebody that had a slave girl around,
You can be a crime boss and still know that slavery is wrong.
Yeah, right.
Well, exactly. And also, I don't think that there's one flavor of villain. A good villain does not necessarily do what another villain does. Everyone has their own mantra that they follow. And there are villains out there who specifically they'll do the right thing. They'll never harm kids. Like they'll, treat people with respect, but they're still, in the traditional sense of the word, a villain based on what they're doing, based on the crime. But yeah, those are my favorite types of villains. So like, Bobo, like we're rooting for him, even though, we know, and also it's different based on like I remember the way they portrayed him in some of the extended universe books. So it's interesting what they're, to see if they're going to go more of that route or if we're going to see him. If we're going to see him, I want to see him interact with Luke, I think would be really cool too, to see like how that goes.
Well, Fennec's going to tell him like this Jedi came in with a green lightsaber and he took with a green what? So, like that happened before that scene, but like there's a scene definitely between where Fennec fills him in on what happened after he left, and Boba Fett is not happy about who Grogu's with now.
Yeah,
but I also don't know that Boba Fett. I also don't think he's necessarily going to be holding like a major, like screw you, Luke. Like I don't think he's gonna be like hunting Luke down.
I don't think it's that
on Solo down, which they won't bother to deal. Like they won't. I don't think they'll do that because it's. I mean, I guess you could go get Alden Ehrenreich, but that feels like,
I don't think that's the direction they're going to go. And I think that I agree with you. If they get Luke, I don't think it's going to be a duel or anything, but I do think there's going to be some tense words, and that they might I could see it where they somehow have to briefly work together, and it's a team that they don't want to be on. But at that rate, it's like, okay, well, if they ever do have extensive scenes with Luke, would they do the CGI? I don't know if that would work the same way. So
don't do it. Like you brought Luke back, we set him up. I don't need it again.
Yeah. But
that said, I would have said the same thing if you'd asked me, do you want Luke Skywalker to show up in the Mandalorian season finale? I'd be like, no, don't do that. That's twice that they've done that this year. Because if you had asked me before this season, will you be excited if Boba Fett and Luke Skywalker show up in the Mandalorian season 2? I'd be like, no.
Yeah,
why would you do that? There's plenty of characters, and then I'm here like, give me all of it. I love it more.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes you just don't know. That's what I love about not knowing that kind of thing. Sometimes you just don't know until you actually see it, because the idea of it sounds more ludicrous than actually getting it. And the way they did it, especially with Luke, especially that touching scene where we got to see, Din holding Grogu and literally crying. That of all the moments in Star Wars, there have been two. Like I don't say this easily because we're all film buffs here. Like we love. It's hard to, in my opinion, it's hard to phase people who watch a lot of movies because you're going to be like, you've seen what's out there, like for me anyway, it's hard for me to really be too phased about something unless it's really something. And there have been two moments in Star Wars that really did that to me, and this was one of them. That whole sequence with Luke leading up to the goodbye, where Din placed Grogu in Luke's arms. So I won't forget this. But do you guys have final thoughts on this episode?
Well, I have something that I think is important to take a moment when we talk about the Mandalorian, and we were talking about Boba Fett, the first Mandalorian we know. It's I think a good moment to mention the passing of Jeremy Bulloch, who was Boba Fett up until this series, and just very weird that this is the week that he passes away, where Boba Fett is in the news again. And he's much older, obviously. He was much older than obviously he was. This is like 40 years ago. So I don't believe he was someone who could have reprised the role had they wanted to. But I mean, we never saw his face. And yeah, I know he's barely in those two movies, but what an important character. So I just wanted to take a moment and mention that he had passed away just either yesterday or the day before.
Yeah.
Speaking of finals, can we also appreciate the just pure Star Wars-ness of the final shot of this season, not including Boba Fett? Because they literally they got Luke with Grogu and then R2. It's the end of every Star Wars movie where you see Luke standing there.
Yeah.
It's the same framing, and they didn't like the wipes are not a huge part of Mandalorian like filming, but they did it anyway by just having a door wipe for them.
Yes. It really felt like we just watched, and it felt like the end of a movie. If we put like season 1 and season 2 together, feels like one completed movie, and that we're waiting to move on to the second movie in the trilogy.
Well, it was just that it was the Star Wars end shot. It was the same shot at the end of Empire. It's just like a different layout, and it's just perfect.
I'm sorry, I can't ignore a pun of this level from the chat. Maybe Boba's next move will be to address the Oliphant in the room.
Cobb's coming back.
However, Christian, I'm disappointed in you because you didn't say our shields can't repel puns of that magnitude.
I should have said that. You're right. You're absolutely right. I was just so excited to get it on the screen. But I'm glad you mentioned that ending shot. That's one of those things that if we hadn't brought it up, I would have kicked myself for not mentioning. Yeah, it's like they're like, yeah, this is a very Star Wars thing, and we're gonna give it to you. And then the next thing you get is like, oh look, it's the establishing shot of Jabba's palace. So it's fantastic.
I will say to the point that I've been put in the chat, yes, Mandalorian does use wipes, not nearly as like crazy. They don't do it as much.
No,
as
and you don't see it as much as you did from 1977 to 1983. Just in general, you don't use wipes as often as they used to. You know, it's a big part of that trilogy. And you don't see them that much, including in The Mandalorian. It's not that you never see them, but
Yeah.
And like it's not, they don't use it as liberally, and it just they managed to do one without doing one, and that was what I appreciated.
And it wasn't even just the shot; it wasn't even just the wipes. It was the fact that the ending shot had the same coloring and the same like posture and feel exactly, except no Leia, but it was the same kind of like this is to be continued. That's what it felt like to me. The same way as Empire Strikes Back had elements of closure, but you knew it was to be continued.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Also, one other thing that we didn't mention it, but like I feel deserves a call out was the just epic badass lady brigade that we got.
Yeah.
That was done with no fanfare, and I picked that in the best way because I've talked about like Endgame, and it's one of the moments during that big battle that like is like so well intentioned but misses the mark
it definitely misses. Yeah,
is the quote unquote A-Force moment where it's like all these characters are great, all of them are badass, but this was so forced that you took us out of it. But this was just like all of a sudden they're walking down this plank and 2 Mandalorians go under the thing and then they're going to blast up. And it's just like, and then you don't even realize until it's already happening. That's these 4 badass ladies kicking ass.
Yes.
And I just felt Peyton Reed and the whole show deserved that acknowledgement.
I agree. And yes, I have the exact same feeling in the moment in Endgame that very well intentioned. This was great.
We're talking over Rachel, and I want to point out the irony of us talking about badass ladies while we talk over Rachel.
Bringing up that the male brings up the badass ladies, and then the 2 males are talking over the female.
No, I'm gonna woman-splain this to you, Rachel.
Sure, I'll wait. No, I'm just kidding. I really appreciated Katie Sackhoff and Ming-Na Wen, just all of it. I was fully expecting that what was going to happen is that somehow there was going to be some subterfuge, which is essentially what we got with Moff Gideon, kind of like tricking them with where he was going to be. But regardless, I wasn't scared for Fennec or Bo-Katan. I kind of knew that they would be able to handle their own no matter what happened. I was more scared for Din, even though Din, like, he has shown us how much of a badass he is. So we know what he's capable of. But I was still nervous for him, not against the stormtroopers, but when those dark troopers got involved, I was like, yeah, I don't think he has a chance. I mean, against one, maybe, but not all of them. I was at a point where I was so anxious that someone was going to die that I considered scrolling ahead just to make sure that didn't happen. And I was like, no, just let it play out. See wow. If, you know, because I was nervous about these things like that. And yeah.
When they shot up Bo-Katan at the end, when Moff Gideon unloaded her, I actually had to watch it back the second time because I thought that they had killed Bo-Katan and given her like no death scene for a moment, because she gets shot up, like up and down. Like he doesn't just aim for like the breastplate or the head, like which are protected. He goes like the whole 9 yards, and she goes down, and then they cut away. And no one goes to help her or anything. They don't show her getting up. She's just up when Luke walks in, but I missed it because I was so distracted that I thought when that ended that she was dead.
And I thought that Moff Gideon, he kept like looking at his gun, like the blaster. I thought someone was going to get it before Luke arrived. I thought that someone was going to get hit. And I was really concerned because Fennec did not have a mask or anything. So I was like, okay, not that she would, like there was no reason for her to have one, but I was like, okay, for practical purposes, it might be easier. It might be better if she somehow found a mask just in case someone was shooting at her face. Because it's like, you know, it makes sense that Din and Bo-Katan, like they would, you know, they'd have that to kind of use. But yeah, so I mean, my final thoughts here. I just really appreciated the way that they gave us enough closure here that we're not, I feel like we're going to be able to move on to another chapter of this. It's going to stink waiting, but I love that they gave us enough closure with at least the Jedi aspect. And, you know, I think Zach, I think you had said this at some point that we can only have a child in this team for so long. Otherwise, if Din's just settling down and he's safe, it can't just be a story about him trying to keep Grogu safe for the next few seasons. It's got to be something more than that. So, yeah. So, I mean, I'm just really excited to see what we get next year. Did anyone else have any final thoughts before we wind down?
I didn't know what to expect going into this. This is not what I expected.
Yeah.
And I'm so happy with what we got. I rewatched it today, like before we did this, and like it was just like that was so fun. This is fun Star Wars. I love when Star Wars is fun. Like, don't overanalyze it. Don't get caught up in like, oh, I wasn't surprised by this. Like, this was just like, who cares if it was expected? It was fun. It was just good.
I agree.
Thank you, Jon Favreau and Dave Filoni and Peyton Reed and Mark Hamill and everybody.
Oh man,
Pedro Pascal.
That performance.
I'm spent.
Yeah. And Pedro Pascal, I listened in on an interview. He did hint that he might be joining other shows too.
That makes sense. He's the Iron Man of this little pocket of the Star Wars.
It absolutely is.
Or like
I can't. Whatever we get, I can't wait till it. I'm not convinced as to how soon we'll get it. I don't know that they've been able to go into production. I don't think so. I mean, do we know anything about that? I feel like we won't get it next fall is basically what I'm saying. I think it's going to be longer than that. I think the next thing we get is Boba Fett, and that, you know, because
wait, what are we getting next fall?
I feel like we're not getting more Mandalorian next fall. It might take longer.
Christmas Day. They said the first episode will drop Christmas Day.
Oh, okay. So okay.
But I mean, it doesn't mean they can't push it if it's really going to be an issue.
But No,
No,
that's
Hollywood's back into production, and this show shoots on the Void thing.
Yeah.
The Mandalorian's pretty protected from
Yeah.
shutdown.
Well, and we know that Cassian has already started filming in London. So if they're filming,
That's true.
I would.
That's a great
Getting
point.
ready to film in England, and they're
Yeah, I'm sure that they are.
Great. Well, I can't wait.
Awesome. Well, Christian, where can everyone find you?
Well, if you're watching on YouTube, you're watching my YouTube channel that I share, the Black Cast, and we do this show. Earlier today, I did the Star Trek Discovery after show, which, obviously this show had big reveals in it. There's a reveal in the new episode of Star Trek Discovery that I did not see coming, and I was so excited that I didn't have it spoiled for me. And somehow, while talking about it in the after show, I spoiled it for a friend of mine who just popped in to say hi. And I was like, well, don't come into the after show if you haven't watched it. What are you doing?
that's not on you. That's
no,
on the friend.
it's not. But I can feel a little bit bad, but not that bad. But yeah, and it was like a really cool thing that they did that I didn't see coming. So I love that show. Obviously, I'm going to miss this show. We got a few more weeks of that. We've been talking for an hour and 20 minutes. If you like a conversation that is this long plus an extra hour, then you should tune into the conversation I had yesterday with longtime X-Men writer Chris Claremont. It went on for 2 hours and 18 minutes. We talked about a lot of things, but especially because it's Christmas time, I'm tilting this at exactly the wrong way, but it's always worth showing the Christmas issue of Uncanny X-Men from 1980, where Kitty has to fight an alien. So, but that is up there. And we did our Black House Christmas special today. There's a lot out there. So please subscribe, BLADTCAST. I spell it out because some of you are watching on Twitch and Facebook. But you'll get this content and so much more. And I appreciate people like Rachel and Zach taking their time to help populate these shows with commentary that isn't just mine.
Awesome. And Zach, where can everyone find you?
Yeah, I'm on. You can find me on Twitter and Instagram at that Zach Wilson. That's where I go to randomly shout things when I don't have a platform like this to shout things. Thank you guys for having me and letting me come on as a guest of several times over the course of the season. Of course. Whenever I could not contain the yelling to my apartment, I needed it to go further. So thank you guys so much. Yeah, and keep up with me on Twitter. I'm always talking about I'll always be there to talk about nerdy stuff.
Awesome. And I can attest to the screaming on Twitter because I've seen it. No, but it's really cool. Like, I love watching some of the live tweets. But you can find me on Instagram at either Rach Goodman or at Rachel Radner. Rachel Radner is more of my writing stuff, which is pretty much what's going on these days with me. On Instagram, you can find me at Rachel Radner Author. I do have a couple of books out on Amazon and a couple of short stories that are now out with a couple of collections. So yeah, that's pretty much where you can find me. I also cover The Young and the Restless, an after show called Restless Rap on Facebook. And yeah, that's about it for now, but thank you guys for tuning in. This has been a really fun conversation, and I'm sure we'll be back next year to bring more coverage.
And Daniel Drew mentions that WandaVision in less than a month, January 15th. So one last shameless plug. Our Marvel Movie Talk show will move to Fridays so that we can react to each episode of WandaVision. So look for that in the new year, please.
Awesome. And so until then, may the Force be with you.
I'm the only one without a Grogu. I'm so upset now.
That too. There you go.
Yeah, okay. There's mine.